Hello, engineers, and welcome back to the DevSecOps series. So, today we are going to learn about security fundamentals. In this particular video, we will be learning about the basic terminologies that you, as a security engineer, need to be aware about. So, I have seen a lot of different people who say they are in security domain, but sometimes they get confused in between uh, discussing what are the differences between this particular stuff. Like let's say someone asks you what is a vulnerability, what is a threat, what is the risk, and what are controls. So they somehow kind of struggle to answer the questions to these particular things. Okay, so in order to do that, what I decided is that first you need to learn about the basic stuff before we move ahead in the different topics that we have uh, discussed in our previous video regarding the contents. So these are the things that we are going to cover in our today's video. And I would like that if you kind of save this thing and have added these particular keywords to your vocabulary while you are going for an interview, then that would be very beneficial for you and also for the interviewer, that they would get to know that the candidate that they are kind of interviewing right now knows the really basic stuffs that most people get confused between. So, uh, before we get started, I would like to ask you that if you are watching this particular video and you like the content, so please do click the like button. I would say that the like target of this video can be 25 likes before. I'm not expecting much. So, if you see that the number of likes in this video are less than 25, then I would highly appreciate if you click on that button and subscribe to the channel and share it with your contacts who are looking to get into security domain. So, let's get started. Cyberblade. So the very basic terminology that we need to know before we, talk about the highly uh, magnificent things about SaaS, DAST, and all these different tools. We need to know what is weakness, what are vulnerabilities, what are threats, what is risk, and all these other stuff. So weakness is nothing but lack of strength or ability in doing something. Okay, let's say there are two people. One is really very thin and short. The other one is very heighted and the body is really puffed and looks like a bodybuilder. Okay, gym goer. So, who do you say is particularly weak in that scenario? You would say that thin person or the one who has a lot less height is weak in that particular manner. The same way we can talk about softwares or infrastructures. You will easily get to know, depending on the kind of architecture of the software or any other different thing, the coding style, the deployment methods used, or the infrastructure that they have built, the networkings that they have set. You can look at the particular application or the infrastructure and say that this particular application is weak or not. So basically, something which lacks in strength or ability is what we will call as weakness. Now, don't consider these things as a vulnerability right now. Okay, weakness is just lack of strength or ability. But when we talk about vulnerability, sometimes what security engineers do is use these two words interchangeably, but it's not correct. Both things mean different stuff. So vulnerability is what? It's being susceptible to attack, harm, or any kind of exposure. So as I talked about the person who is thin, okay, and the other one. So who do you think is more susceptible to attack? The one who is thin or the one who is puffed and jacked? Okay, easily the one who we talk about being weak is the one who is more vulnerable. Of course, the other one can be attacked, but it would take a lot of effort on our end to attack the bodybuilder person, right? The same goes with our softwares. Okay, so nothing. Vulnerability is what? Being susceptible to any attack or harm. and the amount of effort that someone can take to harm you, that is really the key over here. Okay, some applications are more vulnerable, others are less vulnerable. No application is particularly too much secure that it cannot be compromised, but it depends on the level of the intelligence of the attackers. Okay, so that's how we define those terms. Then what is a threat? Okay, threat is something called as a potential danger. Okay, you can consider this like anyone can attack anybody, so to say. So that is what we can say as potential danger. But it is not that it will happen as you expect it. It would not be daily or weekly attack. Sometimes attacks might take years to happen. So that's why threat is what? It's an underlying stuff, underlying danger that is kind of a danger for your organizations, let's say. So a potential danger is called as threat. Then what are the different types of threat? Some threats are directed towards you. Okay, means someone who tries to attack on you. Let's say when we are talking about those two persons, if someone is trying to directly attack them, then that is called as an adversarial threat. Okay, and what is the difference between this and the non-adversarial is that non-adversarial threat is not intentionally directed towards particularly you or us, let's say. So the difference is that someone is targeting you specifically. Okay, he is kind of uh, deciding the target as this person and then tries to attack. Let's say phishing or scam calls. And let's say there are floods and power outages in your city. So they are not intentionally for you, but they are general threats which are called as non-adversarial, which would affect all of the other people along with you. Both are potential threats, potential dangers, but one is directed towards you, another one is not directed towards you. Right? It's still a danger, but not specifically for you. That's the difference. So a weakness is a lack of strength. Vulnerability is being susceptible to attack. Okay. Then threat is a potential danger. I hope these things are clear to you. Then next, what is a threat actor? We got to know about threat. Okay. Threat is a potential danger. But then what about the actor? Who is going to cause this potential danger to be actual reality? Then here comes this threat actor who is an adversary. Okay, adversary means what? One's opponent in a conflict, competition, or dispute. Okay, forget about these things. Okay, one's opponent. Opponent is the main thing that you need to understand. An adversary or an opponent with a malicious intent. Malicious intent, it means he or she wants to do some mishaps over you. Okay, they want to steal the data, they want to steal your money, or they want to steal your what we say intellectual property. Okay, they can do anything, or they want to attack your reputation in that case. So that is called as a threat actor. Consider this thing simply as an hacker. Okay, all of you say right, hacker, hey by hacker. So that's a threat actor who has an adversary, who is an adversary with a malicious intent. Then there is something called as exploit. Now, what is this particular exploit, and how does it relates to the other stuff that we just discussed about, right? We discussed about weakness, vulnerability, threat, and threat actor. Now, how would you combine all of these things and call something as an exploit? Okay, how does it fit? This vocabulary fits in our dictionary, let's say. So when a threat actor, okay, the one who is with malicious intent, successfully takes advantage of a vulnerability or a weakness in your system. Okay, got it? So when the vulnerability that you have in your softwares or in your organization, when those uh, like those are being taken advantage of, or someone tries to use them to make any harm, cause any harm to you, then that is called as an exploit. And who is going to cause that one? A threat actor. Okay, a hacker is trying to exploit your vulnerability to successfully take advantage of any situation or anything that they want. It's a general term. Okay, so exploit is when a threat actor successfully takes advantage of a vulnerability. So I hope you got the point. Now, next is what we will be looking at, the relationship between these few keywords. Okay, so a weakness can lead to vulnerability. Okay, a vulnerability, as I mentioned, is susceptible to any compromisation, right? A weakness can lead to vulnerability. Vulnerabilities can be exploited by threats. So that is how it goes. W causes vulnerability, weakness causes vulnerability, and then these vulnerabilities are being exploited by whom? By the threat actors. Okay, okay, a potential danger. So that is how they relate to each other. So now once if you are in an interview and someone calls, someone asks you, okay, explain me how would a vulnerability be of threat for us, okay, or how someone like what happens to a vulnerability. Then you can say that okay, there are some weaknesses in our software that what we call as vulnerabilities, and then those vulnerabilities are being susceptible to any kind of attack or danger or any harm. Then there are some threats that are lurking around, and then someone called as a threat actor can use this vulnerability and exploit my application or anything like that. So this is how you kind of use this keyword in your interaction, so that the person who is interviewing you would get the clear understanding that you do have this particular uh, basic knowledge of these terms. The next is impact. This keyword is what you need to really understand, so that you could check how bad a particular vulnerability is in your application. So what is an impact? The potential consequence of a successful threat exploitation. Okay, let's say some hacker is successful in exploiting your application. Now what impact does it causes? Okay, what is the critical impact that is related with the customers or with the data that you have? Let's say you are a banking application. Okay, you are building a banking application, and if some particular hacker is able to exploit any vulnerability in your application, then he can steal your money, right? And that's how you would get a financial loss. So that is the impact of this particular weakness or vulnerability. And once you lose your money, then the customers money is lost. They lose the trust on the particular banks, which would cause a reputational damage. And then once that data is breached, customers data is breached, then the hackers would get the information about their credit cards, their debit cards, their bank balances, their home addresses if they are linked with it, their mobile numbers. And once those particular data are pulled out by the hackers, they can be used in a lot of different ways you cannot even imagine. Okay, so how much impact a particular vulnerability is causing, that is what is important for you. Now let's imagine if there is a healthcare organization, and it has all the data, healthcare data about important personality, important figure, let's say about Donald Trump. So they know that Donald Trump is having this particular kind of health condition, and some another politician is using a pacer, okay, in their heart. So if someone got the information about that particular pacer and the ID associated with it, then he or she can connect to that pacer and increase the speed of that pacer, and it could cause a high blood pressure, and that particular person can be killed easily, right? So it is not that easy, but if it happens, uh, God knows what would happen in that case. Now after impact, there is one more term that is really important in this sense, is that the risk that you have to calculate. Okay, the risk is a kind of potential for loss or harm. Depending on your business criticality or the application criticality, you need to, measure that how much risk a particular vulnerability is causing your application. Okay, if your application is way too critical, let's say your application or your code is being used for launching a let's say rocket. Okay, and uh, launching rocket is very expensive. and if there are humans in that particular rocket, then the potential for harm, the risk is more, right? If that is an unmanned vehicle or rocket, the risk is less, it would be only financial, right? But if there are people in it, then the significance of this particular risk is very high, right? So that is what we call as potential of for loss or harm that is caused by a particular vulnerability, let's say. So that is what we have to calculate, the risk associated with things. So example, the harm that can be caused to an individual or an organization's assets, data, and reputation due to cyber threats or vulnerabilities, right? So if you have seen this movie called as Tick Tick, it's a South Indian movie. Uh, you can watch it and see the risk of something. Okay, then there is one particular missile that they have to, someone wants to steal it, and then there are the other team who is wanting to use that particular missile uh, for defending the Earth from a big asteroid. So you can watch that movie and tell me what do you think about the risk associated in that particular thing. Okay, so that is what a risk is. Now then we know, yeah, there would be certain potential for loss or harm in our applications anyhow. You know, now what to do about it? So what we have to do is we need to do risk assessment. Now, what is assessment? Assessment is like identifying, analyzing, and prioritizing the potential threats and vulnerabilities. Okay, first is to assess these things by identify and analyze what risks are there present in your application. And then once you get to know what risks are there, then you can prioritize these potential threat and vulnerabilities. And then there is something which we will be looking in the next few slides about it. Okay, once we have that data, now what we have assessed the risks that are present in our application and they are accepted by us. Okay, that these are outstanding risks. Uh, Now, what is the next step of doing that? Okay, so that is what we will look into another slide. So I hope you got the point. What is risk? What is risk assessment? Okay, to check what risks are there, identify and analyze them, and prioritize them based on the criticality or the danger that is possessed to you. Now then comes the question: what is the difference between a risk and a threat? Okay, we got to know that threat is some kind of danger that is out there. Okay, potential danger, and risk is what we saw, potential for loss or harm. So now the risk is a passive danger and threat is an active danger. What do we mean by that? Now, a threat can be only identified once an attacker targets you or your organization. Okay, so unless and until there is an attack, you cannot say that some particular thing is a threat to me. Okay, let's say you have a multiple users using your organization's application, let's say, and you do not have configured any user ID or password or authentication method. That is a kind of threat, but or a risk, let's say. Okay, risk already, which is there. But once someone else logs into your organization and do something which is not authorized, then it becomes a threat. Okay, because it is actively damaging whatever that application is not intended to do. Okay, or intended to do, let's say. So let's say someone came in the rocket space and then put up few wires in different order, then the rocket can particularly fail or explode in that case. So that is an active danger that we have. But the risk was there when before even that particular person entered the premises of the rocket. The risk was there. It was passive, but it was there. And that someone could, change the orders and this could go wrong. But when did it become threat? When the threat actor came in there and then changed the order. Remember, it's still not launched, but that is a threat. After launching, it will eventually fail. That's how it is. So now we know that there are risks and we have done risk assessment. Okay. Now what to do about it? We have identified, analyzed, and prioritized the risk based on the criticality of those risks. Now we would look at mitigation. Mitigation is what? To reduce, to do something that would either protect your applications and reduce the threat that is there. Okay, so let's go with the formal definition. What it says is implementing security controls, okay, and measures to reduce or eliminated identified risk. So that is what risk mitigation or vulnerability mitigation, if you have heard that particular thing. So correcting your stuff, whatever it is, it may be the code, it may be the architecture of your software or anything else, network security and all these things. You can implement some controls which can detect those things, and some measures can be also applied to do what? Reduce or eliminate these identified risks that we have done in the risk assessment step. Now, for example, take as implementing a firewall to secure your networks. That is one thing you can do. Okay, implementing authentication to allow only authorized users in your application or somewhere, anywhere you take. Okay, so these are the things that we need to consider when we talk about securing any kind of application or anything particularly. It may be a physical security, it may be a security to the hardware or the software or the networks or the applications or the users. It goes a long way. So now, as we have discussed, implementing security controls. Okay, for what? For the mitigation purpose of the vulnerabilities that we have. Now, what are these security controls? Let's discuss about them. So security controls are nothing but the tactics, mechanisms, or strategies that proactively minimize risk in one or more of the following ways. Okay, what ways? Okay, it reduces or eliminate the vulnerability. Okay, if there is a one vulnerability, then we can, create a mechanism and implement anything that you can say as a strategy or a mechanism to what? Proactively minimize the risk that is causing by that particular vulnerability. Okay, then reduces or eliminates the likelihood that a threat actor will be able to exploit a vulnerability. Okay, we saw that how we can reduce the vulnerability, but let's say somehow we were not able to completely eliminate that vulnerability. So even that vulnerability is present in your application, but what we are reducing over here using security controls is that the likelihood that the threat actor, a hacker, can hack your application or exploit your vulnerability. So that is another way that you can talk about security controls. And the next is what? To reduce or eliminate the impact of an exploit. Okay, as we discussed, even though your vulnerability is being now exploited by that particular threat actor, now the impact caused due to that thing should be less or it should be eliminated. Let's say someone got your credit card, but in time you got to know, like, okay, my credit card have been stolen. Now I need to block this particular thing. So even if that credit card is or the details of that credit card or your password is with them, but you have blocked your account, okay, for any kind of transaction. So that impact of that exploit is particularly reduced. That is what it says, that security control should be something that would minimize the risk, okay, in one or more of the following ways that are mentioned over here. So can explain uh, what kind of security controls do we need to implement and what it should be doing. Okay, either it should be eliminating the vulnerability or it should be eliminating the risk of a threat actor that it would exploit a particular vulnerability, or another way is that the impact of exploit should be minimized. So now we have seen security controls. Then what is this thing which we call as a countermeasure? Okay, so countermeasure is kind of a control which is implemented to address a specific threat. Okay, let's say we have a network related threat which can cause a DDoS attack on you. So it is a kind of specific threat, and you can only do few things to address this particular threat. Okay, you need to do a WAF stuff, configure it, a firewall, a rate limiter, or something kind of this thing, uh, that will reduce this particular threat. So it is called as a countermeasure for DDoS attack. Okay, it would not be considered as a security control. It would be a security control, but specifically we would say that this is a countermeasure instead of a security control. Okay, so countermeasures are generally reactive. Reactive, it means what? It would be specifically curated for a specific task or specific kind of vulnerability. Okay. And then these countermeasures may be more effective for a specific kind of vulnerability, as I have mentioned, the DDoS attack, but less broadly efficient if you try to implement it the same way on other things. Okay, so something which is related to network security would not be helpful if someone breaches the authenticity of your particular application. Okay, let's say network attacks are possible, but even though someone is not kind of exploiting the network attacks but is trying to inject any SQL injection query or any cross-site scripting is being done, so a kind of DDoS countermeasure would not be helpful in that way. Okay, DDoS countermeasure will only uh, safeguard you against those kind of attacks, but it cannot specifically safeguard your application for excesses or injection kind of attacks. So that is the difference between security control and a countermeasure. Remember that thing. A lot of people get confused in these two words. Okay. Now next is the trustworthiness of these controls. Okay. So how can we say that a particular control is very efficient in the way, um, or how can we approve this thing? Okay, that this control is really very good, and you should, or another organization should use these particular controls. So these controls should be verifiable. Okay, it means it should be trustworthy. Then and only then it could be considered as a standard way of securing something. Okay, that we are going to discuss in next few videos. So, what are the parameters based on those we would be consider it as a verifiable or trustworthy control? So, it would depend on the functionality, effectiveness, and the assurance of this particular controls. So, what is the functionality? The functionality is that what a control does. Okay, what a firewall will do. Okay, it would attack. I mean, it would safeguard you against any network attacks, right? Then how well a control works. Okay, how well a firewall help us in kind of safeguarding our network using these particular things. Okay, so effectiveness means that it reflects the control's consistent, complete and reliable and timely operation. Then what is the assurance of this firewall or this control that we are applying? Okay, assurance is what? A measure of confidence. Okay, how much uh, reliable it is. Okay, confidence that intended security control are effective in their application. So let's say some firewall is there and it is not able to block a particular range of IPs. Then is it effective? Is it assured that if some attackers launch an attack from these particular IP addresses, then our firewall will stop it or minimize the risk of this particular attack? Okay, so that is what assurance is. And if that firewall is not able to do anything, then okay, it loses its confidence. Okay, and then why would people use that particular thing? That is what trustworthiness on this controls is. Okay, based on their effectiveness, assurance, and the functionality. Now next is a control objective. Okay, so if we are trying to apply any security controls, then what is the objective of using those security controls? So objective, it means a statement of desired result. Okay, if I apply a firewall, I think that applying this firewall will make my network secure. Okay, my application's network secure. And what is the desired result? That no one who is not intended to use that application that is mentioned in the firewall, okay, that should be allowed to reach up to my application. Okay, only people who are allowed and authorized would be able to reach my application through this firewall. So that is a desired result. That is a control objective that we have. Okay, control objective is a statement of desired result or purpose to be achieved by implementing a control or set of controls. Now, if you are going to gym, you will eventually, if you kind of work hard, you will build a physique. Right? That is a objective that we have. Like if I go to gym, I will get strong. And what will be the result of that? Is that someone who is more stronger than me in the previous time would not be able to bully me. That is why the most of the people go to gym to get strong so that other people cannot suppress you in any other terms. Okay, that is one kind of desired result or a control objective that you have. Okay, so you need to ask, what am I trying to achieve or accomplish if I want to consider a control objective? Okay, what will be the end goal if I apply this particular control for my organization or for my application? So let's say, for an example, I want to protect my application from being accessed by unauthorized user. Now, what kind of controls you would use to do that? Okay, controls you would use is kind of login or authentication mechanism. Okay, you would ask any user to redirect to that URL of your application, and it would directly not give the access of the application, but it would first ask to enter your user ID, password, or secret token in order to authenticate that particular user to the application. And once those particular credentials are correct, then and only then you would give the applications access to that particular person. Okay. Then identity and access management mechanisms is also you can place for this particular stuff. And then creating roles and permission. Now, even though or let's say an authorized user or authenticated user is kind of entered in your application, you need to restrict what they can do. So in order to do that, to restrict the level of permissions or the authority to that user, you can create roles and permissions for the user. Now imagine a security guard in your organization is able to make financial transactions out of your office account, okay, or your organization's account. Is that a clear violation of the duties or responsibilities of this particular security guard, or that is a flaw in your application? Okay, so that is a flaw in the roles and permission applied to that particular person. Okay, then now yes, I have added one security control for my organization. I have, let's say, created an authentication process or login procedure for accessing my application. But is it enough? That is the question you have to ask. So one security control is not at all going to make your application secure anyhow. You need multiple kind of controls so that you create a layer of security. Even, like, why to create this layer of security? Now if one security control or layer is being breached, then it should not cause the entire application to collapse. Its security should not collapse. It should rely on the other security layers to stop the attack. Okay, let's say even someone got the password and user ID of your account. Okay, then there should be another control measure that would ask for authentication again. What we say as two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, in which they would ask a serial digit number, which would be there in your mobile phone. And once you enter that particular number, then only you are allowed to access the application. So what we have done, we have layered these different things. A security control is being layered, okay, based on the standpoint of authentication. So what we have done is we have used multiple layers, okay, multiple overlapping layers of diverse security controls. They are not the same. They are a bit different, and they will, help you secure your application. So that is called as defense in depth, okay, or layered security, which is a design and implementation of multiple overlapping layers of diverse control. And you should not depend upon one control or same type of control over and over again. Because if someone got to know you only have this kind of security, then it is easily breachable, and they can breach it multiple times unless you change the type of control or you kind of add more stuff to it. Okay, if one controls fail, then the others can help to safeguard the asset. Okay, so even though you have a bank, okay, physical bank I'm talking about, and you have a security, and you have some personal security personnel in the inside. Okay, some of them are on the gate. Okay, if the people who are on the gate are being attacked by some few people, and that security gate that is breached, Okay, they now enter to the premises. Now the people on the inside should be able to safeguard them. If not, if those particular people are also breached, then there comes the locker, the big locker that you might have seen in the money heist. Okay, so that should be ultimately more safe than the other layers, so that the cash in that particular bank is secured. And meanwhile, if someone got to know that there is an attack on the bank, then you can call the police or the army, let's say, to come to your bank. And then, it gives you, like, having defense in depth applied gives you enough time to take action once there is a threat actor entering your application. Once it is being exploited, there is enough time for you to, apply any countermeasure, or minimize that, the impact of that particular attack. So that is how you should think about this security, control, diversity, and defense in depth. Now, as we have discussed a lot of different things in these previous slides, let's talk about something which is called as a baseline. Okay, a security control baseline, or baseline criteria, let's say. So what does it stand for? It stands for a minimum standard of security implement, for a given environment. Okay. Now, let's say we take the example of bank. Okay. Now there should be a layer of security that is considered as a minimum security control baseline. Okay. Minimum 5 guards should be on the gate. Minimum 10 guards should be on the inside. 2 guards should be near the, security vault. And then the security vault should be having a very, thick layer of, the steel guarding the money that is, lastly inside the, locker. So the money is our asset. And then these are the security baselines that we have created, that 2 guards are here, 5 guards are there, and 4 guards are there. So for our software applications, the same way, there are certain security best practices or implementations or very minimum standards applied. Sorry, that should be applied to that particular, um, software. Okay. And where are these things defined? Who decides this minimum standards of an application for a user to use? It is given in the frameworks that are provided by the NIST. Okay. NIST is what? National Institutes of Standard and Technology. So NIST, provides some frameworks which are called as cybersecurity framework, privacy framework, risk management frameworks. Okay. And there is something called as ISO, which gives us information security, cyber security, and privacy protection kind of frameworks. You know, in which they have mentioned, like, this is the level of, minimum standards your application needs to have in order to be used in this particular region. Or let's say if you have a cloud application, and then it should at least have these features or these security controls, which are called as baseline, controls, so that we can make sure that, we can be sure that whatever information or our data is what we are giving to you, or our money we are giving to you, that is in safe hands. Okay. Which is not easily, breachable. Okay, so that is the minimum expectations from you. So that is called as security control baseline, minimum standards. So you need to know about these things. Okay. Why are these things important, and what all it would do in order to secure your applications? So I guess that's it for today. And if you like these things, the terminologies that we discussed today, then I would highly appreciate if you like, share, and subscribe this particular video. And let me know in the comment sections if you have any questions, queries, doubts, or any additional topics to discuss. Okay, so I'll just quickly go through, these things. We'll wrap it up pretty quickly. So we got to know today about weakness. What is a weakness? What is vulnerability? Weakness causes vulnerability. Then vulnerability, there are different threats that can, use your vulnerability, and then that would cause an exploit. And who would cause this exploit? It's a threat actor or an adversary, which is an opponent of, you or your competition, let's say. Then after your application is being exploited, what would happen? There would be an impact. Okay. The impact is more or less. It depends on the measure of security control that you have applied for your application. And so before being exploited, before the impact assessment, we need to know how much risk our application have, And uh, you know what we need to do is to assess how much risk is there. So assessment is what? Identifying and quantifying and then prioritizing these particular risks. And then once these risks are identified, then what we do is mitigation. Vulnerability mitigation or risk mitigation is what we do. And now, in order to have less risks, or let's say less vulnerabilities, what we need to do is we need to kind of add some security controls to our applications. And then once security controls are there, there should be countermeasures to you know safeguard some specific threats. And then once these security controls are implemented or countermeasures are implemented, how trustworthy are they? Okay, so that has been measured by the effectiveness, the functionality, and the assurance that they provide. And then there are control objective. What is the objective of using a particular security control? Then we need to diversify them so that there is something called as defense in depth or layered security. And then there should be a minimum standard of security controls that are there for any kind of application, let's say on-prem or cloud applications. So that is a security control baseline, minimum standard. That is what we have seen today. So these are the list of topics that we discussed today. And let's see, in the next video, we will be talking about more what is DevOps, what is DevSecOps, and the other different terminologies that we'll need to know before going to the threat modeling and SaaS topic. So that's it for today. I hope you got to know. Please do comment. And one more thing is that you would get this particular slide on my GitHub channel or GitHub account. I would link that thing in the description, and subscribe to this particular playlist. You would get more topics ahead. Yep. What else? See you in the another video. Bye. Till then.